So let's get on to some questions here. And one question that I have, and there are a couple of other ones, but that I have received from the people who have signed up, okay? The question I have is the fact that I am going into a strategic partnership with 3 different companies, one of which I know very well, okay, and I feel comfortable with. The other one is a very large conglomerate that, and how do I handle the insecurities as far as someone taking over what I'm bringing to the table? Does that make sense? Okay, so as an entrepreneur, a small business owner, how do you manage those insecurities? How do you protect yourself in an environment where you could let somebody overrun you real quickly?
Well, has he or she already been hired, and are they going in as a contractor? First of all, they wouldn't be going in unless they already met with certain people and were told, welcome aboard. We love your ideas. We love your whatever, fill in the blank. And insecurities, of course, this would take more than one coaching, but then again, it could take a 20-minute flash coaching, is really, okay, let's go back to the handle, the conglomerate, the thing you already know. What is your, and I know this sounds woo-woo and big, but what is your purpose? What is your life purpose? Insert your life purpose. You know what thrills you and fulfills you. You know what is fulfilling. When you have confident fulfillment, you insert your purpose into whatever you do. And what is your zone of genius? Not to show off, but just to know these are my strengths. And usually with my clients, we identify your purpose for that conglomerate or your purpose for that other company. What would the purpose be? And let's optimize your strengths. Everybody's already strong. You don't need to be another person. You don't need to bring them what you think they want. They want you.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily the issue. The issue is where the division is as far as responsibilities.
So that's what I was going to go to is there a delineated line saying, here's what my company does. Here's how I bring value to your overall conglomerate. Right. I'm still going to be somewhat independent, but we're going to blend together. But what does that blending look like? Where is the separation like? And I would talk about values.
Yes.
Talk about what's your value, what's my values. And if your values do not align, first of all, don't make the deal.
Yeah.
Second of all, one of those values needs to be whoever you're doing this deal with, you need to have an open, 100% open dialogue 24/7 from their side to your side. And if you cannot have that guarantee, again, I would say that's a bad deal. But those would be the beginning steps to make sure you're in alignment. Why are you partnering? What do they get from you? What do they not get from you? So there's still that ability for you not to be absorbed and just taken over, because no one wants to hand their baby over to somebody. They just don't want to.
Right. That's what I was saying. If you're aligned, that is speaking to the issues. First, you go in before you start with the communication. What is my zone of genius? Why are they bringing me in? And when you have that confidence, then you're open to, okay, that communication and like you said, 24 hours, 7 days a week, or 7 days a week. Always keep the communication open, and you knowing what they want and you knowing what you're bringing to the table and who's doing what and how you collaborate. But that communication, so it's open and out there, is very important.
And that's what I was clarifying this morning, because this is the first feeling I had gotten this morning when we were all, because we talk once a week. And, I had to clarify, okay? I had to clarify what I was hearing, all right, and what was really being said, to be able to put that delineation in there. So, I felt more comfortable after I did it, but I know that there's got to be other entrepreneurs out there in the strategic planning or strategic partnering market. Jeff, you should know about this because you've done this before. How do you keep that division, not necessarily division, that collaboration without stepping on each other's toes? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, I think Rich has kind of hit it on the head, who's doing what, who's responsible for what, that kind of thing. But I'm going to say something that it seems so logical and obvious, but if you're doing a very good job in your role, whatever it is, they're not going to want to boot you out. Right. There's number one. Right. but that seems kind of esoteric, maybe. The other thing for me is I'm just big on communication, and I'm not the
That's what
friendliest knife in the drawer. So I might just say, look, we're all working at the same goal here. I've got a role, you've got a role. We all have roles, but what do we do? What's going to happen when we kind of get on each other's territory? Are we going to pull back? Are we going to address it? What are we going to do? And just have a conversation about it so that everybody knows early on. Hey, if somebody's feeling like they're being taken over or booted out or whatever, let's talk about it a little bit here so that we know what's going on and why do you feel that way. And if you have a good working relationship, then that should go over okay. It could hit the fan, but it should go over okay.
No,
Anna, why does that person have fear of being taken over in the first place? I mean, we'd have to kind of address that issue as well. I would ask my coaching client, let's talk about this fear. Why are you going in there with a fear?
Originally, the partnership was developed with one idea in mind. And then as this third entity became involved, things have switched a little bit, and not that it's a bad thing. It's a good thing,
Right.
But I am trying to keep my eyes and ears open to make sure that this third entity is not trying to hone in even on my partner or on the partner, okay, and taking advantage of them as well. So I have to keep my antenna up, because this third partner does bring a lot of value. They do bring a lot of value, but not to the point of taking over the project, because we're talking on a project basis.
Well, and to your point, Nana, and what's been said before, I think one of the undercurrent theme is clarity, and it's how clear are you on what, and everyone in this partnership on what is expected and what is to be done, and part of to get to that clarity point really speaks to what questions are you asking. So right. And are you asking questions? Are you taking the time to get clear and right. to bring forward those ideas? It's often said, the one who asks the question controls the conversation. And right. so it's being, if you feel that feeling of, well, am I being run over or am I a part of this process? Part of that gain that confidence is to have that time to really formulate the questions and to put them out there for that discussion to take place, so that there is that level of equivalency and partnership that maintains throughout the relationships.
No, and that's very
one of the things for me that comes to mind is that one of the things I've worked with several of my clients that who are you within what you do?
Right.
And so I think, and that's where what Jeffrey just said is clarity. Who are you within what you do? And I think when we have that, this is why we do it, this is who we are within what we do, when you are in another group of people, you will be able to discern and empathize with the other people that are in the group and say, okay, fine, yeah, I'm aligned with this person, which is what Ronnie said, but this might be slightly off.
Right.
But I think it's having that clarity of who you are within what you do. And then when everybody can do that same thing, that's where I think we're the division. It's not the division of labor, but it's when, if you do happen to infringe on each other, you've got more of a clarity of like, oh, okay, yeah. Oh yeah, this is what Jeffrey does. Oh yeah, this is what Barbara does, and whatever. So
I want to go back to what Ronnie said. I want to go back to what Ronnie said a few minutes ago about ask the question of why you feel this.
Right.
Because one of the questions I would ask the client is, why are you wanting to make the conglomerate deal? Are you looking to upskill yourself? Do you feel that you're weaker? You need the boost? Is this relationship going to be a level up?
Right.
Do you feel that it's prestige? Is it better money? Why do you need or want that? Because then that's going to ask you some of those bells and whistles that Ronnie was getting to. Mm-hmm. If I feel inferior, if I feel lesser than going into that relationship instead of an equal, a true collaborator, I don't see that being a good thing, because you're always going to have that thing underneath you going, somehow it's not enough. It's not enough. Instead of, are you really true collaborators? Are you all, especially with the three-way triangle now, are you all equal? And do you know your distinctive lanes of what you contribute, or do you feel lesser than? Now, if you have two people that you feel lesser than, you really feel in danger of losing your company, because now there's two against one. So I would go back to Ronnie's question about that.
And why do you feel that fear?
Yeah.
That's a lot. But you know what's interesting is who's leading this? Who is the head honcho?
Yeah, well,
that's good leadership. The good leader is taking these two people, Rich and Jeffrey, where you guys are working with me, and that leader also needs to delineate and draw the lines. Who's doing what and how
Exactly.
and take input. But there's something in leadership there that's missing.
Yeah, I'm sure that there is. These three companies, I guess you could say, these three companies, they bring a different value to the program, to the project, and things like that. And I agree with you. I think we're coming roundabout to the same conclusion here. Is first, we have to have clear communication, in order to get through these hurdles. And then the other thing is identifying who's in charge. We know who's in charge, but they're not speaking up, and possibly making that delineation there, as far as making sure that they do speak up in support of what the overall goal is.
Yeah, if I can just add something.
Yep.
It's not when everything's smooth that's good. It's when it's tough.
Yes.
You have to say things that are tough. What I call friction.
Yes.
So you have to get the shit out on the table initially and say the real deal. Mm-hmm. And able to have a conversation with each and every partner as though they're your partner. And when you're partnership in a business, you have to say the real stuff, the stuff that's not popular, the stuff that's not comfortable. Because if you can't go there, then you're going to build up a lot of resentment. You're going to build up a lot of negative energy, and you won't be at your best when it's time for you to play your role in the project. Mm-hmm. So you have to address these things initially and say, well, listen, this is not a social club. We have to say the real deal. And everybody's got to feel comfortable in speaking up when they're not comfortable. And just say, hold on a second, guys, ladies, I'm not comfortable with this. And that's one thing. Secondly is ask other people what they see in you. Mm-hmm. Say, well, why me? Why are you guys hiring me? Or why are you asking me to be in this part? And let them tell you versus you tell them. Because we're all going to say the good things about ourselves, right? Self-edifying. Mm-hmm. But allow others to speak up, because if you say it, they'll doubt it. That's one thing I learned in the past. But when they say it to themselves, they don't doubt it.
Right.
So let us talk and edify each other and make sure that we're all aligned. And as everyone here has said in a way or another, mm-hmm. We are valuable to each other, because every loop in the ring, the three, they say the strongest chain is in its weakest link. So which is the weakest link? Let's talk about that. We'll overcome this. Like, say the real stuff. That's really what I'm saying.
You said in there, Denny, there's something that you said there, Denny, that sparked this, that I have heard from, that help clients grow. And a lot of people think that leadership is just taking over and who's in charge. There's leadership within yourself, because some people, like you said, will say, Denny, there's an elephant in the middle of the room. They'll call out the elephant, but other people's personality won't do that. But you can still be a leader in how you comport yourself. That doesn't mean you take over and you're overbearing and that you're in charge. It means you're in charge of what you bring to the table. And you do ask, what do you see in me? What do you think my strength is in this triage or whatever? And then you can present on top of that, like, yes, and if you have a new idea or you think, oh, that's not enough, you go with the yes, and. That's being a leader when you can lead yourself. That's leadership.
Right.
It establishes the value from the start. So everybody's strong. Everybody now feels confident that they can speak up, they know their value, and then that's what I call the Gestalt approach, right? The whole is a lot more important than the sum of its parts, right?
Okay.
I think one of the key things here is also who is that point person and what's their heart.
Right.
Being that point center person is a big role because you have to make sure you maintain the balance of the integrity of the people you brought in.
Exactly.
You cannot be the one that dictates. You have to have a collaborative heart. You have to be willing to pause, stop, lead. But if you have the way that you're just going to lead and you have these two other people working with you, you are not a collaborative.
Right.
You
Right.
really are a force driving through everybody and they're along for the ride. So it really is who's the leader, what's the purpose, and why do they even want to all work together? So you do have to figure out that part. I think is really essential because you can get into a bad deal really quick with big, powerful personalities, money, other things. But if you do not have that heart, you got to check it somehow.
Absolutely in agreement with you, Rich, because one thing I learned in business school, when the task structure of a person involved in a project is very low structure, there's more, you can be a bit more autocratic in your style. But when you have three very competent people in very specific things, it's more collaborative and democratic. So the person leading has got to be that soft, EQ-centric kind of leader that can allow everybody to shine in their own way within the team, and everybody gets the best out of everybody, you know?
So
those are the best leaders, the ones who lead from the back.
Yeah. So let's continue.
Dana, let me just throw in too that, a lot of what we're talking about here is kind of like the pre-planning. Why are we doing this? Why do we feel this way? Whose role is what, all that. There comes a time when in business, as being an entrepreneur, is you just got to have tough skin. You got to have that critical conversation. You got to call people on the carpet. You got to pull the elephant out and talk about it. Sometimes, and I think that's what we have to let our clients know too, and maybe help them through is, okay, you're not feeling like you're being valued or you're being kicked out or the client's going to do whatever. Let's talk about how to talk about it. And
that's what I was saying, that you have to say the real deal.
Yeah.
Same thing.
May I present one? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
I was saying, building on what you said, Jeff, is that oftentimes it's how often do you deal with our clients it's about that avoidance of conflict, whereas it's part, there's healthy conflict. And so that's where the innovation comes from. Things are going to collide, ideas are going to may not mix, but again, it's establishing that place, that trusting environment where we can talk, we can have the discussions, and we can disagree, where you come out of that with newer insights, greater, perhaps some more creativity, some innovation that can move forward. First of all, you got to be willing to be comfortable in that situation and to have those type of conversations too.
I'd like to add to that, Jeffrey, and also to something Jeff said. I work mostly with women. I do have male clients, but often women feel like they have to act like a man. I'm putting it out there. It's like, no, or that they have to speak up and have to go, excuse me, and advocate. Often it's not it's not that they have to speak out and they have to be bold and loud. It's more of, if that's not my personality, but they know and they find with me and they work out, that's my zone of genius. And this is what I bring with that confidence. They don't have to constantly call out and interrupt and act like they're not, because you said they have to be strong and they have to call it out. And that's sometimes not people's style or persona. So those are the ones that are like, well, what do? I don't know how to, I don't know how to speak out, or that's not my personality. And that's fine. Don't be who you're not. Be genuine. Know your strengths. Let's optimize your strengths. And there are ways of presenting it where you're not overbearing. Be who you are. You don't have to be like what you think a leader is.
Well, and not in contrast to what you're saying, Ronnie. Okay. But going on what I think it was Jeffrey that said, or Rich, I can't remember who said it, as far as asking others, okay, what their thoughts are. a personal experience of mine is I come from the architectural engineering and construction market, which is very male dominated. Okay, back in 2009, when I was laid off and started my company, I came out with a very male personality. I came across as masculine, and that would turn people off. Not that I wanted to be that way. It was a learned habit. It was something that I had learned after almost 35 years in the industry. So I didn't change myself. I just changed my approach to things. Okay. And softened things up and became more transparent rather than pushing it down their throats, that kind of stuff. So what are your thoughts as far as I want to stay on the strategic partnering side of things and the collaboration side of things for this episode or whatever that we're doing, because as we move through this newest recession coming up and coming out of COVID, and I spoke with an architect yesterday, and he has no more architects in his office. Everybody are 1099 consultants, and that's a collaborative environment that they have to be in. And he says he actually works better in that kind of environment than them being in the office. So what do you think moving forward we're looking at here?
So I've had a lot of conversations on that. Far too many, probably. I do believe we're making the shift to the contract. The 1099 is probably here to stay in a new way. Insurance, job location, the freelance style. We like to be independent operators now. So much has shifted through COVID, and people have found it to work really well because you can hire for a specific job for XYZ. You can say, I need this talent, this person, this thing, and they'll knock off that part of the project for me. You don't have to bring it all in-house anymore. And I think there's a freedom with that. Then I have to go back to, is it a partnership? Like you're really partnership? Is it an affiliate relationship? Are you hired for a project task only? And I think you have to go back and define those roles, because unless you clarify what that relationship is, you can have the assumption of, oh, I was hired for this. I see this other thing over here. Maybe I also get to do this. When in fact, there's no chance of doing this. You were hired for this. I think the 1099 is here, but I think we also, as leaders, entrepreneurs, we have to define how we're going to use 1099s and how we're going to set them up for success so we succeed, and then we don't slam in the wall after the fact and find out they were expecting more and there was no more on the table.
No, I'm glad to hear that, because yes, this is what a lot of my clients are facing right now, as far as how do they handle these new resource way of working, virtually and stuff like that. So I'd be interested to find out, how have your clients handled some of this, handled the, I don't know, on the employee side, not the employee, it's not an employee, on the contractor side, how are they managing with your leadership?
Well, I have a model where I've had employees for about 15 years, way back, 35 years ago. But in the last 20 years, I've been working on what they call contractual basis with subcontractors or professionals. Now they've been with me for 15 years. So we've developed a relationship. But what my observation has been is that in the US, there's a big focus on employees versus in Canada and Europe, it's a lot more contractual, or what you guys call 1099s. We call them subcontractors, or à la pige, as we say in French, on a by contract basis or by mandate basis. And it's worked very, very well for me, just because I was tired of being a babysitter and having to deal with a bunch of employees. And I know that Rich is laughing because he's probably been through it himself, but it just gets to a point where you have to reduce the friction to serve the customer. The client is what counts. And the way I circumvent it, or the way I deal with it, honestly, in the last 20 years, when my people did work, I write to them, thank you, fantastic job. Well, it doesn't cost anything to write to my contractors. And I had one who's been with me since 2001, okay? He's been through my bankruptcy. He's been through everything with me. I was listening to your podcast this morning, Dana, with that lady that went bankrupt. I was inspired because I have a partner right now who's thinking about it in the US. And so give them, the credit and appreciate them. Second thing is I pay them very, very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Immediately, like the next bloody day, they're paid. Let me ask you a question. When I need them, do you think they respond to me?
Right. It's the same
You have
thing.
to have integrity.
Yeah, it's the same thing with David and I. We're getting ready to scale up pretty fast and bringing on people like you to help us on the coaching side and everything. He's already talking about, okay, we're going to set our fees over here in a separate account so that I can turn around and I can pay them right away. And that's the only way that when you're dealing on a consultant basis, okay, that you can create those fans that are going to want to work with you and continue working to help you grow. And it's all about customer loyalty, customer, relationships. As a subcontractor, though, do you think that as you are collaborating, do you think it's important to have somebody who can act as not a go-between, but somebody almost like a project manager that can manage all the people?
Yeah,
I was just about to say and contribute this, and maybe it's just a little nugget.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for many people who know about HR to work for companies who aren't big enough to have HR for full-time employees, but they're still human resources, and they take care of the managing of the personnel and the contractors and the boss, getting paid immediately. Are you happy? What about insurance? That kind of facilitate things that normally they would get if they were W-2, but they're contractors and who knows the policies, the legalities within each state. So there's a really big opportunity here for somebody who has experience in human resources, but to work specifically for the smaller companies, the entrepreneurs, and their contractors or subcontractors.
Just encourage them and pay them fast. That's what it works for me. It works every single time. I've never had a problem ever with my vendors because I pay them fast and I thank them sincerely every single time. They are so loyal to me. When we go into a client meeting, they feel the bond between my people and myself. And they're not my people. They're just professionals in their respective fields that I bring in as my expertise, as my team.
Exactly.
So, Ronnie, I'm kind of curious, but the theory of a go-between makes sense. Mm-hmm. In my mind, if I hire someone as a 1099 or as a contract, I have XYZ that I want them to fulfill, and I want to release them to go do their best job. I do not want to babysit them. I do want to hold their hand.
Right.
However, I also don't want to be the one that every answer goes through. So I understand that in theory. Vice versa, as the contractor, I want to know where the buck stops. Because sometimes we all know you go to that middleman, you get half the answer. The real answer is sitting behind another desk someplace, and that's really where the answer lies. Sometimes it is better to keep that connection so there is no BS. There is no blockage, so you can do the job, do it well, versus having someone interpret the rules, tell you something else. So I get the theory, but I still believe the direct conduit for a project assignment may be better.
Well, to work on the project, yes. We're talking about the little micromanaging parts of the contract, the money, the payroll, those little things that you as the owner of that company or the owners, you don't want to micromanage everything because you need time to actually have that relationship with your contractors and the clients, not with little other things. Sort of like when people hire VAs, you have an assistant, but who's only in charge of the the parts that are just, that have to do with I forget the
draining, boring part.
Yeah.
The operations, I guess, the operations of it, but no, the relationship and the actual project and what you're doing. No, that relationship is open, but it's sort of like when he was alive, Steve Jobs, to say he had to handle payroll. No. So what I'm saying is, have somebody, this is a good opportunity for people who want to assist and take care of all those. There are personal assistants, there are virtual assistants, there are payroll, there are finance consultants. So this is a good opportunity for other contractors to come in and handle all that.
I agree with that. You know, where I was going is almost like a program manager, because if
Yeah.
you are in the leadership position, you don't want to be dealing with the little things as far as the program is concerned. But you also want to know that those people that you have consulting relationships with are doing their part as well. So you
Well,
need somebody who acts as a go-between, who can make sure that your accountability, making sure that everybody is meeting the tasks, because that's what causes the friction. When you're in a relationship, a collaborative relationship, miscommunication is the biggest thing.
Diana, I would, sorry, did someone
Yeah.
want something?
I think Jeff wants to say something.
No, go ahead.
Jeffrey?
It depends on the complexity of the projects that you're asked to do. If it's building a website, it's very complex. The way I do it, we do an analysis of the architecture before deploying the wireframes. There's the back end, the SEO component that's built in, so that when the site is finished, it really responds to users. There's many steps. So we'll use something like Miro or a Trello or a project management thing where in the color scheme, you know what is part that corresponds to your task. And when the colors change, we know it's finished. And so we know the deployment, we know the financial component that we have to pay that person, and delivery to the client on our promise is the key. So whatever it is, to have one person, I think, yes, to look at a programs or projects manager for all the projects you have that is duly responsible for ensuring and encouraging and getting that liaison between all of the various parts, so that first step is this, second step is that. Okay, now she kicks in or he kicks in, and thank you, great work, move on to the next project. And you as the owner or the boss can see all of those components by one pillar on a platform. Dashboards are well used if they're properly deployed. We don't get into dashboarditis, because that's another thing where you lose all in dashboards. But one projects manager that's really reliable, that it really has that sense of human interaction, encouraging, supporting. What else can I do for you to make this easier for you to do your job? That kind of situation, but not many managers, just one.
Right.
And again, it depends on the complexity of the projects you undertake.
And Dana,
And it depends on the size of the company as well.
Yeah.
Dana, it's interesting because what we started talking about, we said, you need to know your purpose and whose role is what and all that. That's exactly what we're talking about now.
Exactly.
If you're designing a website, maybe you might not have 3 people, you might have 30 people, but still you got to have one person in charge. You got to have clear roles. You got to deal with maybe some of the frustrations and the white elephants, but it's all the same thing. So if you're designing a website, you're going to run a marketing campaign, you're going to go through a hiring phase, whatever it is, it's all kind of the same. You have a clear cut, clear direction, your purpose, as Ronnie was saying. You have roles, as Rich was saying. I mean, everybody knows what's what, and then you go after it and you deal with the issues as you come upon them.
And
There's also something that's really
we're all very, very sensitive. Everybody is. I don't care what you look like on a screen on Zoom, but when you're face to face with someone, you're sensitive. We all don't like to be told or corrected or told. So it's how we talk. It's people. It's just how to run a harmonious family of business or whatever it is. It's all about being sensitive to each other. We mess up. I messed up several times with my vendors. I'm sorry. One time actually he said, "It's enough. I can't work with you anymore." And I was shit scared because I love this guy. So I realized I had to change. So I woke up.
Well, it's like the podcast that I did this morning that you heard. And if you haven't heard it yet, guys, it's up. It's uploaded. Okay. But this guest, she was in marketing and advertising, and through a divorce, she lost everything. Her husband had been doing things behind her back, all this other, lost everything. And she's a very transparent very honest individual. And what that did was it put her into a situation to where they had a lot of clients that were kind of left hanging. And she didn't know how to handle it and everything. But she said that during the process of going through all of this, she'd also lost her mother. So she lost her house, the business, and her mother, all within a short period of time. And basically what she learned through the process of coaching and things like that, she learned what her self-sabotaging behaviors were and was able to turn them around. And even the customers that were left hanging came back to her. You know, they understood exactly what had happened. They did not hold her personally liable for it or anything, you know. And that's where Jeff is saying, you know, and Denny is saying, you're going to make mistakes. Even though this wasn't necessarily her mistake, the only mistake she made was she did not keep her eyes open. She did not watch. She trusted her husband too much, you know, and he took advantage
And,
of it.
that goes to, that's what Jeff said. That's what I was trying to think of. Jeff said, Dana, that you have to have tough skin. That's just it. There's a difference between having tough skin and being resilient. Resilience and tough skin. What if I don't want to have tough skin? What if I am sensitive? Let me be true to myself. There's a difference between having that self-confidence that brings you to the table and you can express yourself. And that's why they get coaching. And that's why a lot of companies are getting coaches to come in rather than HR, because people, and they learn how do I want to express this idea? And they become much more productive and creative. And so they can bring to the table what they are. And if part of them is sensitive and I don't have tough skin, I don't have to.
Right.
I'm a sensitive person, but I have confidence in my capabilities.
Right.
So there's a difference.
Yeah. Jeffrey, I know you've had stuff to say. You just need to speak up here.
Well, it's such a great conversation. I think it's really been kind of covering what's been said. I think one of the what Jeff said best when we talked about the outset, and you brought it forward as well. It's like being strategic versus being tactical, and how much of the time do we spend being in as an entrepreneur in relationships where we're on that strategic level, and how much of our time are we spending on the tactical, and that's where we get into having what are some of the tools and resources that are available to us. And oftentimes it be getting into, because we own something and we have to Boyd and I work with a number of different entrepreneurs and coming from IT, having worked with a number of people in that space as well, where it's always the next idea. And it's like, I'll do it. They're the software developer who's constantly working on the next idea. But the problem is that they never grow or scale because they don't really understand the nuances of how to do it beyond themselves. Right. And it's how do you detach the value of what you're delivering from yourself and the product from the person, and be able to see that there is value without you being there or getting other people involved to produce that outcome and result, and how you can be a facilitator to that process versus always feeling that you have to be the person to make it happen.
And
can I throw a question in? Or
what?
This thought's going through my head a little bit. As we bring on the 1099s, as we bring them in and we establish, here's your role, here's what I want you to do, here's your projects. They clearly understand that picture. Part of the challenge, I think, as a leader and entrepreneur is going to be trusting that they really know what the heck they're doing.
Exactly.
And not getting in the way, because I'm sure we've all had 1099s, we've all worked with people, and sooner or later they'll come up with another idea and they'll say, hey, by the way, I'm working on this. I see it connects to this. I have an idea for this. It may not be on your radar. You may not be ready for attack it, but are we willing to let that expertise of that 1099 you brought in to breathe into the other areas, or are we closed off of that? Because that's where I see the biggest collisions being. Or as an entrepreneur, are we willing to receive and say, that's the reason I hired you, because you're such a smart person. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for someone who can speak up and bring out the other points. Where's that line, do you think, as freedom for them to really shine, or hold them to a project task only? Well, I think that's a danger zone.
Yeah.
Well, question to you. Can I ask you a question on that, Rich? What would be that? When would that line actually be discussed?
That's what I'm asking. How do you set that up for success for everybody? That's part of this. To me, I'd set it up from the beginning and let them know I'm giving you some freedom because I want my company to succeed, and you are fresh eyeballs. Some people, that's the scariest thing, to give someone freedom like that.
Yeah, well, the problem is often you give too much freedom too early, and then you start to tighten up. That's negative. Better start. You have an agreement with someone to do something. You trust him. You say, listen, I'm putting you on this project. Thank you for being part of the team. This is the deployment. This is the cost. This is what you're going to get paid for. We'll drop the information for you to start your job XYZ day, right?
Right.
In the Trello. They get it. They do their job. Great. Move on to the next. Build trust over time. And then as they show themselves to be worthy of your trust, then you start opening up and ask them their advice. I can't expect, and I'm not going to expect, anyone that I bring on my team to give me advice on other components and parameters of a project. Let them excel in what they're hired to do first. Right. You know, I had my staff come to me and say, why you give me this position? I said, why don't you excel at what you're doing now? Then we'll talk about something else. Mm-hmm. Then as they build, they build. So it's trust is built. It's not earned. It's earned and built. It's not a given.
It's just not given.
Trust. You build trust. You build trust in a marriage. You build trust with everybody. So I think start with that. And, you know, I've had people, copywriters who charge me X number of dollars. I said, you're not being paid enough. I'm going to up that. Mm-hmm. I put another $15 an hour. No big thing to me. I'm not going to stop eating because I charge them. I pay them an extra $20 an hour. But that person, oh my God, their confidence goes up. Don't you think that person is going to do an amazing job for me?
You're speaking like a boss, though. You're not speaking right now. Take it from the other end. I invite you to. As a coach, if somebody comes to you, should I give them free rein? You can't tell them, well, you can, but most coaches don't tell people what to do. They draw out of you what comes natural to you. How would you present? This is your job, but I leave the door open in case you want to present an idea. And also to the person who's the contractor, what do you think? How do you think you can express your ideas in a way that you leave the door open, but you're not overbearing? So from that angle, we don't tell our clients what to do. We draw out from them what they feel comfortable doing, confident doing, help them build their own confidence. We don't build their confidence. They build their own confidence, and then how they present it from both.
I'm not talking about it. I'm not talking like you're saying, Ronnie, about a client and a life coach situation. We're talking about three or four entrepreneurs who come strategically. If I'm not mistaken, the idea is there are 2 or 3 strategic partners to coming together to fulfill the need of a greater cause or a greater mandate by one of the people who decided to bring them together. And we're talking about handling subcontractors that work for us, the 3 parts.
That's what I'm saying. That's the angle you're taking right now. And I also present on top of that the other side as a coach.
Well, with that being said, okay, let's go on to another question here. When we talk about strategic partnering, most often the reason you're partnering is because you're ready to scale. Either you want to expand your market, expand your client base, introduce a new product, or enhance a new product, those kind of things. Well, when we start talking about scaling, then the nerves start coming in as far as the leadership is concerned. Can I handle this scaling? Do I have a strategy for handling this scaling? How would you speak to a leader or an entrepreneur who is struggling with the jitters of scaling too fast?
That's a good question.
My first question is, how much of a risk taker are you? Okay. And how much are you willing to risk and leave behind no matter the results? And to me, that's the first gut check, because if you're going to scale, there's got to be a risk. Mm-hmm. Some people are willing to say, you know what, no matter what, we're going to work through it. We're going to work and we're still going to go forward. Right. Some people see that risk and say, here's the top. If I go over that, I'm backing down. To me, risk is the big question.
Because even when you invest, people ask you, your investor asks you, okay, are you very conservative? Are you moderate risk taker? You want to go for it? So yeah, same thing here. And what is the biggest fear? Is it just losing some, or not knowing how to do it? You kind of find out there. Do you know how to scale, but you're afraid to do it right now? Or is the fear of just losing it all?
Well, and this is, my philosophy is when I'm speaking to my clients is, if the work is there, the people will come. Okay. You can find the people to manage it. It's harder to find the work and get the contracts than it is to find the resources.
That's called selling. That's called selling.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way.
Rich wants to sell.
Rich and I have worked together with Chris, and I told Rich and Chris, I said, I need you to do this and this and this. I said, don't worry about the money. I'll get the money. I have to go out and sell. That's what I need to do in order to pay for your services. So, yeah, there's, to me, it's like, okay, it's the chicken or egg syndrome. Do we go after the revenue first and then worry about the scaling? Or do we go after the revenue and in the back of our minds, we're nervous about scaling, but we know we can do it. Let's put a strategy together. Or do we just cut all ties and say, look, I'm here where I'm at. What do you tell your clients? I tell them kind of like, let's take a step back. What does your future look like? Should you just say, okay, I'm going to bypass on this? Or what does it look like? Should you go for it and you succeed? Let's take a step back and you tell me what future looks best to you. Your thoughts?
Well, it sounds like it's really coming back to that strategy question and related to that vision and back, and also purpose. It's taking that step back and reevaluating where are we at in that original discussion we had on strategy and what you wanted to get done. And we all benefit from that. We all have to take a step back, and how often do we do it in our own lives, personal and business? And so just to have that point of reflection and also either validation or decision point. I think it's any business that's looking, it has to do that at some point in time. And I think it's a good opportunity to look at what's their capacity and what are the resources, and also their willingness to want to go through. Not everyone wants to be the $1 million vendor out there either. It's what is going to be satisfying and where I can have a life and also enjoy the benefits of my business. Those are all part of the discussions as well.
And you treated this thought, Jeffrey, that also how will I scale sticking to my mission statement? Because in that mission statement is what mission, what are our core values, and now let's scale sticking to that. If they start wondering if they're becoming something else, that's when, yes, you step back and go, okay, whoa, are we retweaking our vision? Do we still have the same vision? Now let's make it a bigger pyramid. That mission statement is so important, no matter what size company you are, from 1 to 10,000. That mission statement is, this is our mission. This is how we execute according to these values that we hold.
Okay, I go with values. And is one of your values risk? How many here are risk takers? I'm just curious. How many of us would call yourself a risk taker? So, Barbara, how do you evaluate risk? What's the evaluation of good, bad, ugly?
You're muted.
For me, it's getting in touch with everything that we've already talked about. What are the values? Am I in alignment with this person? Is it, because if I'm not in alignment with them, even on some simple things, it's not worth the risk. Because if you're not in alignment to begin with, later on, when something else rears its ugly head, you have nothing to fall back on. So I think for me, that's one of the most determining. Like if I'm going into a joint venture with somebody that we're going to do a project together, it's like, okay, what we've all talked about this morning. What's the mission? How do you feel about it? And what if we come to a point where we're not in alignment? I definitely find out the alignment first.
Yeah, I think it's
my core values. What core values do I have that I will not compromise on?
That's right. The cultural fit, the fit with the person.
Cultural fit, yes.
That fit with a person. I've had people that that wanted to do business. I say, you know what, you're great, everything, but
Yeah, it didn't feel right.
doesn't fit. I said, you know, I like you. I will send you business if I see anybody.
I'll refer you, but I don't want to.
And it's a polite way of saying, I'm not going to get along well with you. And it happens. You know, you can't, like one of my dear friends says, you can't take everyone with you in your life. As I grow older, I lost a lot of friends. I'm getting older. I get new friends. I keep some of them die. The last year, 2 of them, I continue, right?
Right.
But I can't be friends and great and beautiful and wonderful with everybody that I do business with. Some of them will be there for a while.
Right.
You know, they'll just go on their own, and you wish them the best, and life continues, right? So, but that fit, that I agree with you. You have to be able to feel like you can tell people what the heck you want to tell them and not feel held back and stifled. You say what you have to say. Obviously, you can tell. I can say what I feel often, but there are people with whom I can't. I feel, you know what? I'm polite now.
It's like you're walking on eggshells. I am not going to walk on eggshells.
No.
Or maybe you don't walk on eggshells on a personal level, but just then simply, I like you as a person. This business endeavor, we have a different mission. We have a different vision. So let's be friends, but we're going to work together.
And for me, sometimes it's like some people are in your life for a reason, some for a season.
I like that. Yeah.
Know the difference.
Yeah.
They might be there for a reason right now. You either have to learn something from them. Like I have one friend that she was a friend for a little season. I had to learn some things from her that were like, ooh, out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But I learned from her. Now we see each other. I mean, we text once in a while, but she's not in my immediate life.
Yeah. And there are some that will come across. Yeah. There are some that will come across as your friend and you really get close to them. And after a few weeks or even a couple of months or whatever, you start seeing an underlying
true colors.
Yeah, underlying true colors. And, you know, where do you go from there? You just start cutting those ties, you know. Right. I cut them off right there. I cut them. It's not a gradual thing because
something you see, Dana.
Yeah.
You just made me think of something is a client brought up that, especially in LinkedIn now, she feels like there's so many people that want to connect or follow, but it's like mixed with water, instant friend, best friend. All of a sudden, it's like there are too many like, hey, I love your, and she started going, what did you love about my post? What did you love about this? Right. They all sound the same and formulaic. It's so.
Let's have a virtual meet and greet. Let's have a virtual meeting. Which some of them have been.
She said it right.
Some of them have been. It was like, okay, yeah, no, I don't want to buy from you today.
Oh no, I'll gladly reach out to them and say, no, I'm not interested, you know, or something like that.
Let's have a meet and greet.
Yeah.
Let's get to see, because that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, but most of it is spam. So you got to understand.
So much spam.
It is spam. Delete, move on. Delete, move on.
So, Jeff, I'm curious, before we have Dana ask us another question, I saw your hand go up with risk.
Yeah.
So what do you do with all this risk stuff and entrepreneur and teams and stuff?
Well, I have a different view on this too. She asked the question about scaling. I think if the person is prepared, it's going to be easier to scale.
Yes.
Now, let me quickly say that some people try to over prepare. Mm-hmm. So they try to make sure everything is perfect before they start the business or grow the business or invest or whatever it is. And sometimes you do have to say, you know what, I've prepared all I can. Now it's time to take a risk and a step of faith. I'm going to do this. But a time of preparation, I think, will really help to make sure that you got some confidence. You know, I've prepared all I can. I'm going to take a step. I'm going to take another one and another one. It's going good. I'm going to keep taking that step and more. Because if you're not prepared and you try to scale, can anything good come? I guess some life lessons can come out of it, but things you probably don't want to learn from. So let's prepare.
I'm flabbergasted at all these meetings And I'm just being very straight with you, all of you guys. I'm always flabbergasted at all these entrepreneurial discussions where we all talk about doing work, but we never, ever talk about how the heck we're going to get the business and sell and learn how to be professional in our image. Because if you can't, create a very high value narrative about what and explain it clearly to people are not going to buy. So there's the whole sales and buying cycle, and it's no longer a question of sales cycle. It's a question of buying cycle. We have to help people buy. Most people don't know how to buy. So we have to teach them and educate them, and the whole patience and the cycle, the amount of time, the delay between that which you start your business. Okay, I don't know if anyone of you know Jill Conrath. She's a great sales trainer. She wrote a book called Agile Selling, and she said we started a partnership, 3 people, and they all looked at each other. Now who's going to sell? No, not me. Nobody wants to sell. And she took on the job, and she became a famous sales trainer and salesperson, and she made a lot of money. But we have to talk about that. We have to. That's the upfront. Top of funnel prospecting. That's what I specialize in, helping people overcome the fear of approaching people carefully, eloquently, smartly, with relevance and gravitas about the component of, we have this, we've analyzed your company, we believe there's a fit for what we offer that could help you. The problem we know exists in your company. Is it with you? Do you have that problem now? No? Okay. Yeah. You keep a relationship and you continue until the problem arises. You know, they know you're there. You keep in touch. That whole world of engaging human beings and acquiescing and acknowledging mutually the potential problem, and maybe it's now, maybe it's later, and just build on that in your system. And that's big part of generating the money. Because we can talk about all these people who are going to do the work for you guys, but if nobody is getting business, you ain't got a business. Ain't got a business.
Dana, that might be the great topic for our next one, because what are we selling? Are we selling a thing, or are we selling confidence because we are the sellers? Which one are we really selling now? Is it we are selling the confidence through who we are, or are we selling the widget, the thing? That may be a great conversation for the next one.
It's a combo.
And that's the whole reason for Poke the Coach. That's the whole reason for Poke the Coach, is the fact that, okay, we're selling ourselves. And these people want to know who they are hiring as coaches. And so everybody has a different approach to things. You know, Jeff and I understand where Jeff is coming from. He has a different perspective. We're both strategists. Okay. We wouldn't think about just jumping into something without some kind of an outline. It doesn't have to be set in stone or anything like that, but have some kind of a starting point. And what is the goal that we're trying to
Dana, we can't help it that everybody's wrong. I mean, you know.
Really. but yeah, there are a lot of companies out there, entrepreneurs out there that they have to have everything outlined, spectacularly. The whole purpose for what we're doing right here is because, myself and my company, we're in need of coaches out there. Okay. And we understand that entrepreneurs have difficulty finding out which coaches they want to deal with. This is a way for them to kind of test before they buy type thing. Okay. So that's part of the strategy on how we're going to scale our business. So this is important out there. And Jeffrey, I know you said you have to wrap up for another meeting. So we'll get ready to, and Rich has to go. So I think we'll go ahead and end on that note. Any last minute comments, guys? Give me some last comments. And
that people don't often understand. I mean, there are many people that understand what coaches do: executive coaches, strategy coaches, relationship coaches, life coaches. Right. But really, the coaches out there, and I always go back to the sports performance, you already are talented. You already are strong, but you don't see what somebody else objectively sees and pulls it out of you. to sound like Yoda, whatever he is, the answer is within you. Well, it really is. How you are programmed in your brain, you can bring out. It's already in there. So you optimize who you are. I'm a very pragmatic woo-woo, in other words, because life coaching sounds so woo-woo, but I'm very pragmatic about it. So yeah, it's very important that people do ask, how would you coach? And interview those coaches one-on-one. A valid coach will be able to explain how they work. And a valid coach, in my opinion, this is personal, will also say, you know what? I know someone else who probably would.
Be better. Yeah.
Because you're not going to coach somebody well that you just don't jive.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'll give a quick shout out to our topic of the day is, again, 1099 is here to stay.
Yeah.
And I think as entrepreneurs and leaders, we better start thinking about how our company needs to pivot and adjust and make it work for both sides. It is not dominated by us as the owner, the entrepreneur. I think we have to figure out how to make it a collaborative way and get used to doing work with 1099s.
Right. And also those 1099 consultants, they need to understand their pricing structures and things like that. They don't want to undervalue what they bring to the table.
Yeah.
So those are other things that need to be taken in. Jeff, any last notes?
No, I think our discussion today was very good, and there's a large segment of people that's going to really benefit from this.
Yeah, great.
Agreed.
Right. Jeffrey?
Yep, I agree,
Denny?
Jeff. Hey, it's
Well, I would just. Sorry, yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, good. Denny.
Yeah, I'm happy that we brought it up because it's been very successful for me for 15 years, the 1099 formula. There's a more mature relationship that it sets up with 1099s than with employees. Not that employees are a bad thing. There are companies who thrive with employees. I just find that when you're an entrepreneur and you have a kind of a business that's a mill or less, it's a nice formula, and there's an interdependent relationship that builds up and more maturity.
Yeah.
And I can go on for a long, long time this way, and I'm very happy. And I'm happy and thank you for bringing this up, Donna. It's a very worthwhile and respect-worthy theme to discuss.